At this point, Lester figured that he could get away with anything, but still he decided to lay low and stack his money. This continued for a couple of years, but then came some unexpected news. October 1st, 1987, Jamaican authorities announced that Lester Coke is wanted for the 1984 incident in Rema where 12 people lost their lives. So the United States extradited Lester Coke to Jamaica right away. But Lester knew that it was all smoke and mirrors, especially because Edward Sega was still in charge. Well, just like he expected, the Jamaican government didn't even put him in jail, despite what they told the media. The JLP government told him to lay low and to avoid leaving the Tivoli Gardens. All of this was to prevent the political opponents to finding out he was free. Well, you can't really tell Lester what to do, and he decided to put Sega's reputation on the line. November 3rd, 1987. It's a Tuesday morning in West Kingston, and Lester hops in his car to go grab some food. As he arrives at the store, he tries to double park. Well, behind him is a school bus who honks at him to move. This makes Lester upset, so he gets out of his car and walks up to the bus window, and that's when he makes a horrible decision. Witnesses from the scene told police that it was Lester Coke, but they knew that he wasn't supposed to be out. So police hid the statements and let Lester go back into hiding. Well, all of the bus drivers were infuriated with this act. So together they all went on a strike. Every single bus driver in the Kingston area refused to do their job until Lester was arrested. Now the JLP government had a major dilemma at their hands. On one hand, the kids are not able to go to school and there's no end in sight. On the other hand, charging Lester would prove that they never arrested him in the first place. After a while, the JLP had to make the right decision and Lester Coke was arrested. This time, Lester actually had to sit behind bars. After nearly a year in jail, more bad news would come his way. October 1st, 1988. 87 Shower Posse members were indicted in America. New Jersey police arrested 53 while Miami police arrested 34. During the case, quite a few members gave up Lester Coke, including Charles Miller. And this is how they figured out everything Lester had done in Miami. This included the incident in Lil Haiti, the reggae party, and finally the Colin Fowles incident. So the FBI called on the Jamaican government to extradite Lester Coke. Prime Minister Edward Sega would refuse the request by telling the US that Jamaica would handle it themselves. The FBI knew that there was a higher chance of finding a beautiful woman in Bakersfield than the Jamaican government actually sentencing Lester Coke. And for those who aren't familiar, the chances are 0 in each case. This lasted for a few years and Lester never even faced trial in Jamaica. The US was not happy with this, so now they threatened sanctions on the country of Jamaica. Edward Sega and the JLP now had another dilemma on their hands. Either lose respect from most of Jamaica or turn in the man who funded your political career. It was really a lose-lose. Either way, Edward Sega was screwed. He decided to do nothing, and ultimately this lost him the 1990 election to Michael Manley. Now this was terrible news for Lester Coke, as now the PNP was in control of his fate. He went from balling in Miami to looking at life behind bars. On February 1st, 1992, Michael Manley announced that Lester Coke would be sent to the United States. The US Marshals were set to pick him up in 2 days from the Jamaican jail. Lester knew that it was all over for him, so he appointed his son to be the new leader of the Shower Posse. This would be Alexander Coke, also known as Jah T. The announcement was made to all of the Shower Posse members on the morning of February 2nd. However, by 4 p.m., Jah T was found in front of the Tivoli Gardens. No suspect was ever named, and Lester Coke was absolutely devastated by the news. And what would happen next is one of the strangest things I've ever covered. Later that night at 11 p.m., a major fire breaks out at the jail and firefighters rush in to help. There they sadly discover Lester Coke. Everyone was confused on the matter and 3 stories began being circulated. JLP supporters believe that he was silenced because of the dirt he had on the CIA. PNP supporters believe that he was trying to escape and he botched the process. And lastly, Kingston police believe that he was overwhelmed by what happened to his son. The world will never know this answer, but this was a wild 2 days in Jamaica. A week later, over 40,000 people showed up to his funeral to pay respects. For JLP supporters, his name is still highly regarded despite all of the awful things he did. They credit him with paying for their schooling and making sure their kids were always fed. Well, this was the end of the Shower Posse. New Jersey had taken them down, Miami had taken them down, and the only place that existed was now Toronto, Canada, and Philadelphia. But for Jamaica itself, the Shower Posse was done for. The PNP government was in total power, and the JLP was now weak. This honestly brought a couple of peaceful years to Kingston, so maybe the JLP and the Shower Posse were the problem to begin with.